Lowe's knows when you're looking for reliability, the right brand makes all the difference. And now, Lowe's is the exclusive home improvement retailer for the Whirlpool water treatment line, including their Wi-Fi softener, under-sink filtration system, and more. With Whirlpool's proven performance and our everyday low prices, better tasting, better quality water is within reach. Shop pro-trusted brands like Whirlpool and more, in-store or online. Lowe's, we help, you save.
Calaroga Shark Media.
In the year 596 CE, a small band of 40 monks departed from Rome, venturing north toward the far edges of the known world. Led by Augustine of Canterbury, these missionaries had been dispatched by Pope Gregory the Great to convert the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms of Britain, regions that had largely reverted to paganism after the Roman withdrawal a century and a half earlier. This journey represented more than mere religious zeal. It marked a fundamental strategic shift in how the papacy conceived of its authority and mission in the post-Roman world. While earlier popes had focused primarily on maintaining ecclesiastical structures within former imperial territories, Gregory recognized that the papacy's future might lie beyond those traditional boundaries. By directly commissioning missionaries rather than working through established metropolitan sees, he created direct relationships between Rome and newly converted regions. Relationships unmediated by the declining administrative structures of the post-Roman Church. Today, we examine how the papacy's missionary strategy fundamentally transformed the institution between the 6th and 8th centuries. We explore how monastic networks became the primary vehicle for papal expansion, how political alliances with northern kingdoms reshaped papal priorities, and how Roman centralization gradually replicated itself in regions never governed by the empire. This is the story of how monks and missionaries took the papacy north. This is White Smoke, Episode 23. Monks and Missionaries. Pope Gregory, the only pope alongside Leo I to receive the traditional title, the Great, fundamentally reimagined papal authority for the post-Roman world. A former monk himself and deeply influenced by Benedictine monasticism, Gregory recognized that the Church's future required new organizational approaches distinct from the declining late Roman administrative framework. Gregory's genius lay in recognizing that monasteries could serve as stable institutional anchors in an increasingly unstable world, explains Dr. Konrad Leiser, Associate Professor of Medieval History at the University of Oxford. Unlike traditional episcopal structures dependent on urban centers and Roman administrative patterns, monastic communities could establish themselves in rural areas, maintain internal discipline amid external chaos, and serve as centers for both spiritual practice and practical education. Gregory's missionary strategy leveraged these monastic strengths. When he dispatched Augustine to Britain, he wasn't merely sending individual evangelists, but establishing a monastic beachhead that could generate sustained institutional presence. Augustine's community, established at Canterbury with King Ethelbert's permission, became precisely such an anchor, a center from which gradual conversion could proceed through both example and active evangelization. This approach reflected Gregory's practical administrative experience. Before becoming pope, he had served as papal representative in Constantinople and as a civil administrator in Rome itself. He understood that effective governance required not just theoretical authority, but functional institutional structures. His missionary strategy aimed to establish such structures in regions where traditional Roman frameworks had either collapsed or never existed. Gregory's missionary vision combined spiritual and practical dimensions, notes Dr. Carol Straw, Professor Emerita of History at Mount Holyoke College. His famous instructions to Augustine about accommodating local customs when appropriate, preserved in Bede's Ecclesiastical History, reveal sophisticated understanding of cross-cultural evangelization. Yet he insisted on maintaining direct connection to Rome through regular communication, episcopal consecration requirements, and liturgical standardization. This combination of flexibility in methods with consistency in institutional connection established a pattern that would characterize papal missionary efforts for centuries. Local adaptation in pastoral approaches, coupled with Roman centralization in governance and doctrine, created a distinctive model for expanding papal influence beyond former imperial boundaries. As Roman missionaries moved northward, they encountered a different Christian tradition already established in parts of northern Europe: Irish monasticism. Irish monks had been conducting their own missionary activities across Britain and the continent, establishing monasteries at Iona, Lindisfarne, Luxeuil, and St. Gall. These Irish foundations operated with significant independence from Rome, maintaining distinct liturgical practices, monastic rules, and ecclesiastical structures. This Irish model offered an alternative approach to Christian expansion, one emphasizing monastic networks over episcopal hierarchies, personal spiritual authority over institutional position, and regional diversity over Roman standardization. The resulting tension between Irish and Roman missionary patterns would shape northern Christianity for generations. The Irish model presented both challenge and opportunity for papal authority, explains Dr. Charles Edwards, Professor Emeritus of Celtic History at Oxford University. Irish monasticism's independence threatened Roman centralization, yet its ascetic rigor, intellectual achievements, and missionary zeal offered valuable resources if they could be integrated into papal frameworks. The Synod of Whitby in 664 CE represented a pivotal moment in this integration process. King Oswiu of Northumbria, whose kingdom contained both Roman-affiliated and Irish-affiliated monasteries, convened church leaders to resolve differences over calculating the date of Easter and other practices. The Synod's decision to follow Roman rather than Irish dating methods represented a significant victory for papal authority in Britain. Whitby wasn't simply about liturgical calendars, notes Dr. Sarah Foote, Regius Professor of Ecclesiastical History at Oxford. It determined which institutional model would prevail in Northern Europe: the decentralized network of Irish monasticism or the hierarchical structure centered on Rome. While both traditions continued to influence Northern Christianity, Whitby established Roman primacy as the organizational principle. This formal acknowledgement of Roman authority enabled integration of Irish monasticism's strengths into papal frameworks. Subsequent missionaries from Britain to the continent, like Willibrord and Boniface, combined Irish ascetic traditions and missionary techniques with explicit papal authorization and institutional loyalty, creating a synthesis that proved remarkably effective for northern evangelization. If Gregory provided the vision for papal missionary expansion and the Synod of Whitby secured its theoretical acceptance, Boniface created the practical organizational structure that would institutionalize Roman authority across Northern Europe. This Anglo-Saxon monk became Rome's most effective missionary architect through a remarkable career spanning more than 3 decades. Unlike earlier missionaries who operated with general papal blessing but significant local autonomy, Boniface established direct, formal relationships with multiple popes. In 719, he travelled to Rome to receive explicit authorization from Pope Gregory II for his missionary work. This papal commission provided both spiritual legitimacy and institutional protection for Boniface's activities in Germanic territories. Boniface's approach represented a new level of papal missionary integration, explains Dr. James Palmer, Professor of Medieval History at the University of St. Andrews. He regularly corresponded with Rome, requesting guidance on practical problems and theological questions. He returned to Rome multiple times to report directly to successive popes. He explicitly structured his mission as an extension of papal authority rather than a personal or monastic initiative. This systematic coordination bore fruit in Germanic territories where Boniface worked for decades. He established or reformed bishoprics according to Roman models, convened synods to implement Roman practices, founded monasteries following the Benedictine rule favoured in Rome, and suppressed practices Rome considered unorthodox or inappropriate. His famous felling of the sacred oak at Geismar symbolised not just confrontation with paganism, but assertion of Roman Christian authority over local religious traditions. Boniface's organizational work culminated in the reform of the Frankish Church under the protection of Pepin the Short, mayor of the palace and father of Charlemagne. With papal authorization and Frankish political support, Boniface reorganized the Frankish ecclesiastical structure, replaced problematic bishops, established clear hierarchical relationships, and imposed Roman liturgical practices. This transformation created the ecclesiastical framework that would later support the Carolingian Renaissance. Boniface effectively translated papal theory into functional structure, notes Dr. Michael Winterbottom, Emeritus Fellow at Worcester College, Oxford. His reforms implemented in practice what earlier popes had claimed in principle. Rome's authority to organize, correct and govern churches throughout Western Christianity, regardless of political boundaries. This practical institutionalization of papal primacy would survive Boniface himself and shape European Christianity for centuries. Boniface's martyrdom in 754 CE, killed while attempting to convert pagans in Frisia, only enhanced his legacy. His remains, brought to his foundation at Fulda, became a pilgrimage site that further connected Germanic Christianity to Roman authority. His numerous letters, preserved by his followers, provided practical templates for implementing Roman ecclesiastical governance in non-Roman cultural contexts. As papal missionary activity expanded northward, the papacy's political orientation shifted correspondingly. Where earlier popes had maintained primary political relationships with Constantinople and local Italian powers, by the 8th century, Rome increasingly looked to the Frankish kingdom as its principal secular partner. This reorientation reflected practical realities. The Byzantine Empire, though still technically sovereign over Rome until the mid-8th century, had grown increasingly distant both geographically and culturally. Imperial armies no longer effectively protected Rome from Lombard pressure. Theological disputes, particularly the iconoclast controversy under Emperor Leo III, strained ecclesiastical relationships. Meanwhile, the expanding Frankish kingdom, officially Catholic since Clovis's conversion around 500 CE and recently reformed under Boniface's guidance, offered potential military protection and political support. The pivotal moment in this realignment came in 751 CE, when Pope Zachary gave his blessing to Pepin, the Short's deposition of the last Merovingian king and assumption of the Frankish crown. This papal sanction of dynastic change established a pattern of mutual legitimation. Papal authority sanctified Frankish political power, while Frankish military strength protected papal interests. This arrangement fundamentally altered the papacy's geopolitical position, explains Dr. Thomas F. X. Noble, Professor Emeritus of History at the University of Notre Dame. By aligning with the ascending Frankish power rather than the declining Byzantine Empire, the papacy secured practical protection while establishing unprecedented influence over a major secular authority. The Pope's blessing of Pepin's coronation established a precedent for papal involvement in royal legitimation that would significantly expand papal political authority. This realignment culminated in 754 CE, when Pope Stephen II personally travelled north to meet Pepin and secure military assistance against the Lombards. During this extraordinary journey, the first papal crossing of the Alps, Stephen anointed Pepin and his sons, bestowed the title Patrician of the Romans, and secured the promise of territories that would eventually form the Papal States. The resulting donation of Pepin established the temporal foundation that would support papal independence for the next millennium. Stephen's journey north physically embodied the papacy's strategic reorientation, notes Dr. Rosamund McKitterick, Professor Emerita of Medieval History at Cambridge University. A pope personally leaving Italy to seek Frankish protection represented dramatic recognition that Rome's future lay with northern alliances rather than Mediterranean traditions. This geographical shift paralleled the institutional shift from Roman imperial frameworks to new political arrangements with recently converted northern kingdoms.
What if everything you've been taught about happiness is wrong? We chase careers, approval, more stuff, hoping it'll finally make us feel fulfilled, but it never sticks. What if happiness isn't out there, but already inside you, just waiting to be unlocked? Discover the book, The Happiness Experiment. Every person has a unique happiness type, and when you understand yours, everything shifts. You'll stop chasing and start creating joy on your own terms. Discover your happiness type with a free happiness type assessment. Go to myhappinnesstype.com. That's myhappinnesstype.com. It takes just a minute and it might change your life. Then grab your copy of The Happiness Experiment at Books A Million. This isn't just a book, it's a practical framework, a journey inward. It's a tool to help you reconnect with the happiness that's been waiting inside you all along. Pick up The Happiness Experiment and start your happiness experiment today.
By the mid-8th century, the cumulative effect of missionary expansion and northern alliances had fundamentally transformed the papacy. From an institution primarily focused on preserving Roman traditions within former imperial territories, it had become one actively expanding its authority into new regions through direct missionary activity. From a church leadership position operating within Byzantine imperial frameworks, it had become an increasingly independent authority, forming its own political relationships and territorial claims. This transformation manifested in multiple dimensions. Geographic reorientation. The papacy's primary sphere of influence shifted from the Mediterranean world toward Transalpine Europe. Regions never part of the Roman Empire, like Ireland, Anglo-Saxon England, and Germanic territories, became increasingly central to papal concerns and identity. Institutional development. Missionary activities required more sophisticated administrative structures to maintain connections with distant churches. The papal chancery expanded its operations, standardized documentation practices, and developed more formal communication channels with outlying regions. Theological emphasis. Engagement with new cultural contexts required clearer articulation of essential doctrines versus adaptable practices. Papal correspondence with missionaries shows increased focus on establishing doctrinal boundaries while permitting cultural accommodation within those limits. Cultural synthesis. As northern converts entered church leadership, they brought distinctive cultural elements that gradually influenced Roman practices. By the 8th century, the papacy itself reflected synthesis between traditional Roman patterns and northern European contributions, particularly in monastic practices, penitential traditions, and artistic styles. The papacy that emerged from this northern expansion was fundamentally different from the late antique institution Gregory the Great had inherited, observes Dr. Julia Smith, Professor of Medieval History at the University of Oxford. It operated on a different geographic scale, engaged with different cultural contexts, utilized different institutional methods, and conceived of its authority in different terms. Yet it maintained essential continuity in its self-understanding as the heir to Petrine authority and center of Western Christianity. This transformed papacy would face significant challenges in the centuries ahead, from Carolingian dominance to Viking invasions, from reform movements to secular conflicts. But the institutional foundations established through missionary expansion and northern alliances provided resilience that would enable the medieval papacy to survive these challenges and eventually expand its authority to unprecedented levels. White Smoke is a production of Calaroga Shark Media.
From the creators of Palace Intrigue, a new chapter in royal history begins. William and Kate's wedding captures the world's attention, but royal life isn't as perfect as it seems. Tensions rise as Harry meets Meghan, sparking a divide that will shake the monarchy to its core. From explosive interviews to family scandals, the royal family faces its most public challenges ever. As King Charles takes the throne, the future of the monarchy hangs in the balance. Family secrets, royal rifts, and the future of the crown. Crown and Controversy, wherever you get your podcasts.
What if the biggest threat to the royal family is the royal family? I'm Mark Francis, host of Palace Intrigue, the daily podcast that goes behind the palace gates and straight into the headlines. Right now, we're digging into Entitled, the bombshell new book that claims Prince Andrew's ties to Jeffrey Epstein run deeper than ever imagined, with espionage, secret deals, and even possibly a Trump massage list. New episodes every day. Follow Palace Intrigue wherever you get your podcasts. There's always something brewing behind palace walls, whether it's Prince Harry and Meghan Markle making headlines from afar, or Prince William and Princess Catherine quietly preparing for the future throne. I'm Mark Francis, and on Palace Intrigue, we cover every twist, turn, whisper, and wink. From royal drama to daily gossip, follow Palace Intrigue wherever you get your podcasts.